So let's talk about decision making. Hey, it's Pastor Fabian. How do you make decisions? One person may say, I like to pray about it. Pastor, I like to pray before I make any decisions. I like to get God involved. Another person says, man, you're too spiritual. Pastor, I like to gather my information, get my facts, my figures, the stuff that I'm going to use as a firm foundation, good basis for a solid and a good decision. And you're both right. Neither one of you are wrong. In decision making, there are at least 4 or 5 basic or essential stages to the process. And I want to talk to you about those over the course of the next several conversations. The one I want to talk to you about first today, though, is what we call the definition stage. It's the first stage, the definition stage. And in the definition stage, what we do is we clearly define the circumstance, the situation that warrants a decision. You know, what are the pressure points? What are the demands that are putting us in a position where we need to make a decision? Why? Every what deserves a good why. The reason we want to clearly define what the issue is that brings us to the point of decisions is because when we take the time to write down the issue or dialogue about the issue, we may discover that the thing that we are obsessed about deciding on may not even be the real issue. The real issue may be something else that requires our energy, mental, emotional resources, and otherwise that require a decision. So we take this first part in the decision-making process, the definition stage, to define the problem. The second stage, which is really important, letter B in the definition stage, is what I call laying out your predeterminates. Pre, before, determinates, the root determine. The things that we have determined ahead of time will be our boundaries, our criteria, and our protocols for making the decisions. You know, the necessary ingredients. That's the first thing. The indispensables, the things that you cannot live without. And the non-negotiables, the things that you will not live without. You know, when you're thinking about marrying a spouse, there are certain things that are necessary. There are also things that are indispensable, you can't live without in a spouse. There are things that are non-negotiables, you will not live without. And then, listen, for all of these predeterminants, you need to have a why. Because again, they're good whats, but they need to have good whys. Why is it that your spouse has to be this way but not that way? Why is that indispensable? Why is that a non-negotiable? Why is that even a necessity? You need to buy a car? Same thing. What are your necessities? What are your indispensables? What are your non-negotiables? Only after you flesh through all of this are you really ready to go on to getting counsel, praying, gathering information, etc. Time for a story. In the book of Acts, Acts of the Apostles, a book in the New Testament of the Bible, scriptures in the Bible, Chapter 1, Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, an avid follower of his, stands up in the midst of 120 people who've been gathered together in an upper room, an upper chamber. Jesus has just recently ascended into heaven, and he said, I want you to stay in Jerusalem, stay together until I send you the Holy Spirit, which will empower you to catapult the church across the planet. So they're doing this. 120 people, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, his brothers, a number of other women, 120 of them. In the midst of this assembly, Peter gets up and he says, brethren, a decision needs to be made. And he's not wrong. But what Peter doesn't do is say, let's gather some information, let's seek some counsel, let's start praying. What he says is, let's go down memory lane. Let's define the situation. He says, Judas used to be numbered among us, but is no more. And he says the reason that Judas is no more is because prophecy had to be fulfilled. You'll remember in John 17 that Jesus alludes to this where he says, Father, all of the disciples that you have given me, I have kept except one, Judas, because prophecy had to be fulfilled. Peter picks it up in Acts chapter 1 and he says the prophecies not only occur in Jeremiah and Zechariah, but in Psalm 69 and Psalm 109, there is a prophecy about the one who is going to betray the Christ. And Peter, he lays it out. He says 4 things. Number 1, this young man will be cut off in the midst of his years because the prophecy or the curse says this, let his days be few. Number 2, his camp will be desolate and his home must be empty. In other words, once he's dead, there's nobody at home and there's nobody in his home to inherit any of his stuff. Camp desolate, home empty, his years cut off in his prime. And number 4, which brings us to where we are today, brothers, let another take his seat of authority. A decision needs to be made. See what Peter's done? No prayer, no information gathering, no counsel, just clearly defining the situation. What has brought us here? Is there really an issue, a legitimate issue that needs to be dealt with? And yes, there is. Prophecy, most of it has been fulfilled, but all of it is not yet fulfilled. We need someone to replace Judas. Peter then says, brothers, in order to make this decision, we got to lay out some parameters, some guidelines, some boundaries, some predeterminants that are going to help us in making our decision who should replace Judas. And he lays out 2 things. He says, number 1, whoever this person is needs to have been with us from the time that Jesus was baptized in the Jordan by John the Baptist, all the way through the place where Jesus ascended on the Mount of Olives just a few days ago. Why? From the Jordan to the ascension. Why? Because when you're laying out your predeterminants, your indispensables, your non-negotiables, and your basic necessities that are going to guide and serve as boundaries for your decisions, you have to have good whys. Oh, I want to marry a woman, but she's got to look this way. Why? I want to marry a husband, but this is going to be my indispensable. I can't live without this. Why? Why are these necessary ingredients? Why are these things you can't live without? Why are these things that you won't live without in the decision that you're making, whether great or small? Peter says, look, there are some reasons, some whys that these parameters are here. Why? Because whoever replaces Judas has to be a witness with us, not only of his resurrection, but all of his teachings and all, watch this, the things that Jesus both began to do and to say, all the way to the end. It's only after laying out these parameters, defining the problems and defining his predeterminants, that Peter invites the other apostles to come along and join him in praying. They pray. In information gathering, they go through a selection process to narrow down to 2 people, and ultimately making a decision of which one of the people they narrow down to would replace Judas. Incidentally, the word decision comes from a 2-part word. It's a Latin word, decidere. D means off, cidere means to cut. And when you're making a decision, what you're doing is you're literally cutting off all of the other nonsense, non-starters, non-issue, all the other noise, so that you can narrow yourself down to a good choice and a wise decision. We're talking about decision making. And we're talking about the definition stage, where you define the issue, you define your predeterminants. Another thing about predeterminants, take your time with them now. Take your time with those predeterminants. Why is it that this is a necessary ingredient? This is something that's indispensable, I can't live without. These are things that are non-negotiables, I won't live without. Take your time in the definition stage of decision making. Define the problem, define your predeterminants, and then you'll be well on your way to get counsel, to get input, to gather information, to start praying and make solid decisions. Where are you in the process? Consider where you are in light of what I've said. Next time we come together, we'll talk about the information gathering stage, gathering the information that validates the good choices and the excellent decisions that we hope to make. Until next time, I'm Pastor Fabian. Know the truth and keep living by faith. Peace. We're out of here.
Truth is a ministry of Powerhouse International Church. For more information, visit us on our website at powerhouse1.org.